Tom Brady and the Buccaneers continue to really free fall as we kick off Week 8's coverage. You're listening to the Fumblerooski podcast. I'm Adam Wright here with CJ Medeiros. Guys, we have a great show planned for you guys tonight. As the trade deadline gets closer, we already have a couple of big trades that have happened, and we're of course going to cover Tom Brady and the Bucs and a divorce on the side of that. We're going to continue our Fumblerooski fantasy fix with our fantasy coverage for Week 8, and joining us to help us with all of this coverage, we have Luciano Calvosa.
Yes, that is correct.
Calvosa, I got it. All right. Thank you for joining us. Welcome to the show. Why don't you introduce yourself to some of our listeners?
Well, first off, Adam and CJ, thank you guys for having me so much. I appreciate it. Guys, if any of you guys do not know me, my name is Luciano. I am a big baseball enthusiast. I'm a big baseball fan, big basketball guy as well. I attend Dean College. I'm a freshman as well. And also, if any of you guys don't know, I'm a diehard Yankees fan. So I'll just leave it plain simple.
He's in enemy territory, and I got to give respect for that, even as a Red Sox fan. Listen, I hate the Yankees especially as a Red Sox fan, but I also respect them.
Yeah,
it's like being a supervillain and not having a superhero there. One can't exist without the other. Actually, well, I mean, the Yankees are usually the villain, but
yeah,
you know what I'm saying? You can't have one without the other.
Yeah, I mean, I will keep this brief, but definitely I enjoy watching the Yankees-Red Sox rivalry for sure. I mean, if not, you can argue that's the greatest rivalry in sports, but that's just me. That's just me personally. I mean, I think many of you guys could agree with that too, but I definitely enjoy watching Yankees-Red Sox all the time. It's just so fun to watch.
Greatest rivalry in sports, and disappointing finish to their season, as we're going to actually cover the World Series in your guest segment. So we will hit on some baseball, and more respect to you for joining our show with football not being your number one. You have some knowledge on it, but getting back into it, and respect for that.
I think after this show, Adam, I think I'm definitely going to start gaining some more knowledge on football as I go on, because I would love to come back here as more times as I can. So I appreciate once again you guys having me here, and let's dive right in, man. I'm excited. Let's do it.
Absolutely. All right, so let's get it started, and we're going to talk about the Eagles. So they're already 6-0. So the rich get richer. They trade for defensive end Robert Quinn from the Bears, and this guy got 19 sacks last year. So he had an incredible year last year. He's been known to be up and down, however, and he does have just one sack to his name so far this season, but still a big name they land. But CJ, I'll start with you. What are your thoughts on this deal? Are the Eagles just that much better now?
I mean, every little bit helps. Did they improve? Yeah, but I don't know if it's like the massive improvement that everyone thinks. Because as you mentioned, Robert Quinn is an extremely up and down player. I have his stats here. Last year, he had 18 and a half sacks. The year before that, he had 2. Then the year before that, he had 11 and a half. Then before that, 6 and a half. Then before that, 8 and a half, and it goes on. It seems like he has a good year, then a down year. Good year, down year. And this just happens to be a down year. Maybe Philly can help unlock his potential. But then again, I want everyone to know that he is 32 years old. And especially for pass rushers, when they get up into the upper ages of, like past 30, they start to lose their explosiveness a tad. And maybe that's the case with Robert Quinn, excuse me. And I don't know. I mean, I like the move. I think it helps, but I don't think it's the true game-changing showstopper that really everyone expects.
Yeah, listen, it may not be as big a move as people might think, because I think people are just so mesmerized by the fact that he got 19 sacks last year. However, we can at least look at the gesture to know that the Eagles are all in on this season. And as if we didn't already know it before, they're the team to beat. They're the team to beat this year. They had a lot of question marks going into this season, starting with their quarterback in Jalen Hurts. and also their coaching. And it's all worked out. All of it. Their wide receivers have worked out. They have a very good balanced game, and they play good defense. Their secondary's been incredible. And we talked about the potential of that secondary over the offseason. It looks really good now. And it's all working out. All of it. So, I think that's the takeaway I give with this, is that this Eagles team is locked in and they're ready to go. And even if it doesn't work out, this at least sends the message to the locker room that this is their year and they intend to go all in with it. And I think it's at least going to serve as a motivator to the rest of that roster, that this is our year. This isn't fool's gold. These aren't the same old Eagles, not counting 2017, because that was a good year for them as well. But this is huge for the Eagles, even if it doesn't work out. And I think it could. The change in scenery could also motivate Robert Quinn to find the best version of himself. But Luciano, do you have any thoughts on this as well? What do you think?
Well, I like to start off with this. Something magical is going on in Philly right now. Not only with the Phillies, but also with the Eagles as well. You know, their historic start to the season. What are they? 6-0? 6-0, if I believe that's correct. 6-0. Yep. And I mean, you couldn't have scripted any better. I mean, like you just said before, Robert Quinn is definitely a key addition for especially that defense. You know, definitely want to make their team better, of course. I think, and like CJ said before, they're going all in this year. I think Philadelphia can make a deep run into the postseason, into the playoffs. And anything else? No. I mean, that's really about it. I mean, Philly's definitely a team to look out for this year, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, you're definitely right, and you also mentioned that the Phillies are in the World Series. Nice little teaser for your guest segment, as they are set to face the Astros in their first World Series appearance since 2009. Yep. And I believe, it's their first playoff appearance since 2011.
2011, yeah.
So it's a magical run for Philly.
Mm-hmm.
So
absolutely.
It must feel good to be a Philly fan. Not that any of us are Philly fans, but we could at least show some respect.
Absolutely, yeah.
So, yeah. Anything else on this before we move on?
I think we're pretty good, Adam.
You're all set?
Yeah.
All right. Well, next, as I mentioned, the trade deadline is coming up soon, and the Giants have gotten involved in a way that you probably wouldn't expect. So we'll hit on that. Don't go anywhere. This is the Fumblerooski podcast.
Here's Edelman broken up, and the pass is no sign yet. Edelman comes down with a football. They're saying it's a catch. This is caught. Sideline! Touchdown! Unbelievable! Swings it way down the field to Watkins! Sammy Watkins for the touchdown!
Welcome back to the Fumblerooski podcast. Adam Wright here with CJ Medeiros and special guest Luciano Calvosa. So the Giants are 6-1. They're off to a red-hot start. Their best start in, I believe, 30 years? Something like that.
Yeah, sounds accurate.
They're off to a historic start in their season. So you would think this team would buy, right? Well, if this first trade is any indication, then it sounds like they may not have might not have the most faith in this season. The Giants have traded away 2021 first-round pick. So this guy, Kadarius Toney, their wide receiver, was drafted literally just last year. And in the time that he's played, 10 games, right? For over 420 receiving yards. The guy is proven to be explosive in this league when he's healthy. Well, they traded him away for a 3rd and a 6th-round pick in 2023. So they're practically punting with this guy, and turning him into draft picks. Now, they traded him to the Chiefs, and credit to the Chiefs. They're going all in. They're buying. We expected that because they have their guy in Patrick Mahomes. They brought in Juju Smith-Schuster to replace Tyreek Hill and Marcus Valdez-Scantling to replace him as well. And it's so far worked out. It's been fine. You know, he's not there. Neither of them are Tyreek Hill, but they replace the production to a certain extent, and that team is going to contend. But the Giants have a better record than the Chiefs. They're 6-1, as I mentioned, and they're going in and they're trading Kadarius Toney. Now, he's only played in 2 games this season, but you could at least look at this wide receiving core. Sterling Shepard, out for the season. Kenny Golladay, out. He's been banged up in and out of the lineup. And then you have Darius Slayton, who has been the most healthy there, and he's going to be the only one there now because they just traded away Kadarius Toney. So, CJ, what are your thoughts on this move? Try to make sense of it.
I am incapable.
Go on.
I think this is safe to say no one saw this coming. No one. I don't have words because it's just so out of left field. I mean, I guess the thing naturally to do is just speculate what kind of role Kadarius Toney would have on the Chiefs. Because, I mean, Scantling's been good, and so's Juju and their other guy, Mecole Hardman. He's fine. So who is taking less snaps? Whose production is Kadarius Toney eating into? See, these are the real questions we must ask ourselves. Now, as for the Giants, your wide receiver depth is iffy and everyone is hurt. Why are you trading Kadarius Toney? I mean, Galladay's a bum. Sterling Shepard's hurt. The only receiver that is worth even a glance at is Darius Slayton. It's just, this is a head-scratching move by the Giants. But if you're the Chiefs, you got a former first-rounder for a 3rd and a 6th. He's like low risk, high reward, very explosive, very fast. But if you're the Giants, why? Was he that unhappy there? Did he really want out? Like, what's going on? But long story short, I definitely think Kansas City won the trade, and the Giants might have hurt themselves. Because mark my words, if by some horrendous twist of fate, Darius Slayton goes down, that team is screwed.
Yeah, I mean, you knocked the nail right over the head with that because they don't they only have Darius Slayton, and Kenny Galladay's been in and out of the lineup. He has 2 receptions for 22 yards on 4 games played this season.
Oh,
meaning he's missed 3 games already.
Yeah, didn't they give him like a $70 million deal or something like that?
They gave him a pretty good deal. They gave him a pretty good deal because he put up some pretty decent numbers over in Detroit with Matthew Stafford throwing to him. And his last season, granted, was injury-riddled. And he's been in and out of New York's lineup ever since he's gotten there. So you could at least you at least have a built-in excuse there because he has been getting hurt. And he's getting to that age where injuries will start to catch up with you. But again, like, this is a young guy who you traded away, who has shown potential when he was healthy. And yeah, he's been injury prone before, but it's a small sample size. He could get healthy. He could start to figure things out. And next thing you know, you have a legitimate borderline number 1 wide receiver, wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2, somewhere near that. It's better than anything else you have besides maybe Slayton. Maybe. I mean, Slayton's been good, but he's not a number 1. So just looking at the way they're doing this, I mean, they're basically punting from this season when they do this, aren't they? Because they don't have, all they have, the most productive weapon that they have on this offense is their running back, Saquon Barkley, who's headed towards the tail end of his career. He only has maybe 1-2 seasons left of being productive, if that, because he has shown that he could get hurt. And once he goes away, then you're not going to have much production at offense, and then you're really going to be screwed. So you really have to go all in on this season. And I really don't understand why you decided to commit to Daniel Jones for this last season. You start 6-1, and then you say, yeah, we kind of don't believe in it. We're going to punt and we're going to go on to the next couple of years. Well, Saquon Barkley's not going to be healthy forever, and he's not going to be productive forever. And you just drafted really well on defense, and it's showing. So what are we doing here? What are we doing here? You can't just go all in on a season, go all in on this quarterback just to trade away his good young pieces. None of it makes sense to me. It really doesn't. And the Giants are sending all the wrong messages to their locker room, as opposed to the Eagles, who just traded for Robert Quinn, like they are an actual 6-0 team. The Giants are not working this market like they are a 6-1 team. They look like they're selling. They look like they're saying, this is fool's gold. We're not going in. You just said you were going all in on this season. I'm sorry. It just doesn't make sense.
That was a lie.
Yeah, I guess not. Despite the fact that things are actually working out for this team right now. But Luciano, do you have any other thoughts on this?
Yeah, I do, Adam. And it's funny is how for me being from New York, of course, watching Giants and Jets football all the time, but referring to the Giants, I can attest to what CJ said before, 6-1 on the season so far. I mean, did anyone think this would come from the Giants? We're talking about the New York Giants here, okay? And the Giants, and like CJ said before, their wide receiver issues are very questionable. I will say that. But, I mean, that's definitely sending a message to the league that the front office in the Giants locker room, they don't believe in the season, because the Giants are always used to starting off decently well when I mean that, and they just fall off in the second half of the season. So I'm not surprised of how they're going to start selling their players but coming up with the deadline. I mean, listen, the Chiefs get a nice young receiver, of course, to build up that offensive line for the receivers. But for the Giants, what are you guys doing? I mean, you guys are 6-1. You guys got a pretty decent shot if you keep going. You guys can make a deep play. I'm saying they can make a deep playoff run. But this is kind of sending a message of like, okay, maybe they might make some more deals as the trade deadline gets closer. But listen, the Giants are very unpredictable. Of course, I've seen Daniel Jones the past few years. I mean, he has his ups and downs, but I mean, only time will tell where this franchise is really heading, especially for the years down the line.
Yeah, I mean, unpredictable is one way to put it, especially with this deal, because like CJ said, I don't think anyone could have seen any of this coming, and like it just doesn't look like they're going all in on this year, and this is the best start in decades for the New York Giants. So like, I just don't I don't get it. I don't really get it at all. But we'll see how things work out. The trade deadline, the official NFL trade deadline, is November 1st at 4 p.m. Eastern time. So there is plenty of time, still a few days until that point where the Giants could do something. Maybe they just didn't believe in this guy in particular, and they're like, maybe they'll trade the picks they got for, maybe they trade that for another wide receiver who's on the market. Maybe Chase Claypool. I know there's another guy who was up there that players. I'm blanking on the name that teams are looking at. But
is it DJ
time
Moore?
will tell. Maybe if they got DJ Moore, man, then we're cooking. Then we're talking.
Yeah.
Then that would work. But until they do that, this move just doesn't make any sense. So maybe it could be a prerequisite to something else. But we will see until then. But I wanted to talk about Tom Brady and the Buccaneers. But before we go on to that, anything else on this topic?
It sounds pretty good.
No?
No, it's
right.
fine, man.
Well, next, we're going to hit on Tom Brady and the Buccaneers losing yet again, falling multiple games below 500 for the first time for a Brady-led team in his 23-year career. So for such a historic loss, what could it mean? We'll get to that next. This is the Fumblerooski podcast. Welcome back to the Fumblerooski podcast. I'm Adam Wright, CJ Medeiros, special guest Luciano Calvosa. So Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have lost yet again, this time to the Baltimore Ravens, 27-22 on Thursday Night Football in Tampa. And this means that they lose. So the Buccaneers fall to 3-5. They are multiple games below 500. At least Tom Brady-led team, first time in 23 years. So they still have pieces on offense, such as Mike Evans. They've had Chris Godwin. Their offensive line has been functional, fairly banged up, but functional. So with their defense still functioning as well, CJ, what is wrong with this Buccaneers team?
There are two things, in my opinion, and I'm not sure if the public is ready to agree, but just hear me out. Number one, an underrated problem, I think, is Todd Bowles. He's a very good defensive coach, but if you remember his disastrous tenure with the Jets, then you know where I'm coming from. And I know that was a while ago, but hey, old habits die hard, am I right? But really consider, I mean, even with Tom Brady and Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, like he's just, I don't know, he's a great defensive coordinator, but I just don't think he's really cut out to be a head coach. I mean, he's got a lot of potential, but I don't see it, you know? And I mean, is it really, I mean, just look at the comparison, you know, between he and what Bruce Arians did. You know, well, I have my own issues with Arians. Arians was at least a good coach. And then I think Brady's part of the issue. I do. And it's not that he's doing anything wrong. I mean, I wouldn't even say he's showing signs of age because he's still decent. He's not quite a game manager, but he's a quarterback that you'd still love to have. It's just, let's address the elephant in the room. He's about to get a divorce. It's very high profile. All the gossip hawks are circling on it, but I don't think his mind is entirely on football, which I know is very un-Brady-like, but the man's getting a divorce. And while I don't know what it's like to go through a divorce, I would tell you that I imagine it eats up your mind. I know, like, it's just this cloud that kind of hangs over you. And I think Brady, like, I just think it's affecting his play on the field. It's not like a really complex answer, not really a shocking answer, but I think it is the right answer.
Yeah, you mentioned the divorce. And again, I don't like to dig into somebody's personal life. However, when it comes to football, I think it is a factor. Because so looking at any Tom Brady-led team, they've always been they never had issues with leadership. They never did. Because he's just always been the glue that just molds the team together. And with the issues that this team is having with chemistry, they all don't look like they're on the same page. So why is this not working right now? He's always been a good leader before. I mean, it has to be his issues off the field. And it's not just looking at it as just, oh, he's getting divorced. You have to look at it even closer. Tom Brady only has a couple of years left in the league. So now that he has this divorce finalized with Giselle, now once he's done in a couple of years, what's he going to have? He'll be a color commentator every Sunday for Fox Sports, and that's it. Then he comes home to a family that's really barely there anymore. His wife isn't around. He only gets to see his kids part-time. That's going to be tough. And he's probably thinking about that. You know, like, he loves playing football, but he also knows that his years are limited. And he came out of retirement just to play a couple more years. And to be honest, we talked about this during when this happened. It just didn't feel right when he retired at first, because we all knew that he wanted to play through his age 45 season. So if you want to ask me what he should have done, and I don't know, I have no idea why they're splitting, and I don't have a dog in that fight. But if that is the case, that the coming out of retirement was the issue, then maybe he shouldn't have retired at all. What he should have done, sit down with his wife, say, look, I've always had this goal of mine to play through my age 45 season. I've been wanting to do this for years. Let me play through this one last year, and then I'm done. They're on the same page. He plays his last year, and he gets to spend the rest of his life with his family. But when he went into retirement and then came out of it, it probably pissed her off. She said, well, what the hell? You got to spend time with your family at some point. You can't play football forever, especially since you are in your mid-40s. And I wanted to see him play through his age 45 season as well. But you can't be flip-flopping like this. You have to make a decision, and you commit to that. And I think he had people in his ear saying he should retire. He listened to them in the heat of the moment following their loss in the divisional round to the Rams. And then he went and then he over time he realized, I can't do this. I can't do it. I can't stop 1 year short of it. 1 year short of age 45. And I think that's the problem. He's not the same leader right now because of what's happening off the field. The team's all the same. They're still talented, just like they were last year. And yes, their offensive line is a little banged up, but not banged up enough for them to be 3-5. And their coaching has been imperfect, but not bad enough to be 3-5. And you mentioned Todd Bowles' tenure. In 2015, they went 10-6, and probably could have gone 11-5 if it weren't for Rex Ryan during that last season on the Bills facing the Jets, pulling off that upset with the chip on his shoulder. Because that, you remember, that was his last season with. Yeah. That was his last season on, I believe that was Rex Ryan's, or second to last. I'm not sure. But like, if he was able to do that with Ryan Fitzpatrick, then
have you considered maybe that was just like a flash in the pan? Because I mean, Ryan Fitzpatrick came back the following season and they sucked.
Yeah, sure. But still, like, when you have Tom Brady, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, it's hard to screw that up, especially since you were able to do something. Especially since you were able to do something with Ryan Fitzpatrick. Granted, it was for a year, but it worked out. And I believe they lost some pieces on offense that final year, during that last year. That offensive line was ancient. They started to age, and
but look at every other year that he was there. You can't just say, "Oh, one good year that automatically makes him a good coach. He can't possibly suck." Well, and yet here we are.
He was only there for a couple of years. It was only 2 years, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So there you go. I don't know.
Sure.
I just feel like head coaching is not going to be. It might be a factor. It's not going to be the reason. Their offensive line, they're banged up, but I just feel like it's not going to be the reason they go 3-5. Brady has worked with worse offensive lines. It has to be the issue off the field. It has to be, and I just think, he wanted to play through age 45 season. He should have committed fully to that so he wouldn't be having these issues in the first place. If that's the case, I have no idea what's going on. But if that is the case, then he should have committed fully and communicated with Giselle. But Luciano, do you have any thoughts before we move on?
I'll just keep it brief, nice and short. It's very unfortunate to see Brady go through this. I mean, listen, when we think of football, we automatically think Tom Brady, right? His argument for the GOAT is unmatched compared to anyone else who played the game of football. But I think it's going to be tough for him to play the rest of the season with this chip on his shoulder. Now that his wife is gone, I mean, that's a big blow, especially when it comes to family and sports. That's a big – it's intertwined, And it's very unfortunate to see him go through something like that. But listen, he wanted to play through his age 45 season, like you guys said before. But in my opinion, I feel like Tom Brady, I mean, depends on how many years he has left. He could possibly even play up to his age 50 season if he really wanted to. I mean, listen, it's unfortunate that he doesn't have a lot to go home to now, but it's Tom Brady. Tom Brady, he has so many endorsements, of course, still playing football, all that kind of stuff. But, we'll see what kind of season he has left. I mean, maybe he can turn the ship around. But that's all I got to say.
Yeah, season's not over yet, so we'll see how it goes. All right, but we do want to move on where we are going to go on to our Fumblerooski fantasy fix. So we're going to give you, as always, on Friday episodes, stardom sit-ems for this week, for week 8. So if you're debating who to start in your lineup, it's always a tough decision in fantasy football. We got you covered, so don't go anywhere. This is the Fumblerooski podcast.
Here's Edelman broken up, and the pass is no sign yet. Edelman comes down with a football. They're saying it's a catch. This is caught. Diggs! Sideline! Touchdown! Unbelievable! Swings it way down the field to Watkins. Sammy Watkins for the touchdown.
This is the Fumblerooski podcast by Power 88 and Secret Weapon Consulting. I'm Adam Wright with CJ Medeiros, special guest Luciano Calvosa. So we are on to our Fumblerooski fantasy fix with our stardom sit-ems. We're going to go through each position, starting with the running back. We are going to start Travis Etienne versus Denver after James Robinson was just traded away. Sends a perfectly clear message. The Jaguars are committing to Etienne as their bell cow back, so start him. Also start Tony Pollard versus Chicago. Ezekiel Elliott is officially doubtful for the game, and there's Chicago's run defense kind of spotty. So start Tony Pollard. He's going to get all the reps. It's a run-first offense. It's a match made in heaven for you guys. You're going to sit James Robinson versus New England. I know that James Robinson just got traded to the Jets. Wait a couple weeks. Wait a couple weeks for him because he's still getting acclimated to that offense. It's a new offense, new team he's playing for. Also, he's sharing carries with Michael Carter. We're also going to bench David Montgomery at Dallas. I just can't trust David Montgomery in most matchups, especially against Dallas with that defense. Just Montgomery, very talented running back. The line is not very good. The offense can't move the ball. It's not a good mix for him. Going on to wide receivers, we're going to start Devontae Smith versus Pittsburgh. Usually you want to start him, but in this week you really want to start him. He's going up against that very shaky Pittsburgh secondary. Start him and start A.J. Brown, as if you even need me to tell you that. We have Bengals wide receivers at Cleveland. So it's a juicy matchup for Cleveland. Cleveland is a very, very banged up secondary. And they just lost Jamar Chase for a few weeks. So Tyler Boyd, T. Higgins, start them. Then we have sits. We have Deontay Johnson at Philly. That Philly secondary has been brutal. So starting Deontay Johnson with Kenny Pickett throwing to him, not the best choice. So Michael Pittman, we're also going to bench versus Washington. With the quarterback change, it could give him a boost. It could also make things worse because it's Sam Ehlinger throwing to him, a career backup. So do not start Michael Pittman. We're going on to quarterbacks. We're going to start Joe Burrow at Cleveland. Usually you put him in your starting lineup anyways. But because they lost Jamar Chase, you might need a little more encouragement to put him in your starting lineup. I'm here to tell you everything's going to be okay. They still have Tyler Boyd and T. Higgins. and they have a juicy matchup against Cleveland. All right. For another start, we're going to do Kirk Cousins versus Arizona with Justin Jefferson, Dalvin Cook, Adam Thielen. What more reason do you need? Arizona's defense is just, it's okay, but it's not going to stop Justin Jefferson. So going on to our sits, Trevor Lawrence versus Denver. Trevor Lawrence has shown some flashes, but don't put him in your lineup yet. I wouldn't start him, especially against Denver. Denver has a decent defense. And we're also going to bench Aaron Rodgers at Buffalo. Rodgers had a shaky start to the season as it is, but going against Buffalo in that defense, that's going to be tough for him. So put him on your bench. So going on to tight ends, we're going to start Taysom Hill versus Las Vegas. We're going to start Mike Gesicki at Detroit. We're going to sit Robert Tonyan at Buffalo, and we're going to sit Pat Freiermuth at Philly. Going on to defenses, we're starting the Bills defense versus Green Bay, and we're going to start the Cowboys versus Chicago. Now we're going to sit the Cardinals defense at Minnesota, and we're going to sit the Seahawks versus the Giants. So that was your Fumblerooski Fantasy Fix. Up next, we have Luciano and his guest segment where he's going to preview the World Series. So don't go anywhere. This is the Fumblerooski Podcast. Welcome to the guest segment of our show, sponsored by Secret Weapon Consulting. For business plans, secret shoppers, bar spotting, server and manager training, and so much more, visit www.secretweaponconsulting.com. So, welcome back to the Fumblerooski Podcast by Power 88 and Secret Weapon Consulting. Adam Wright here with CJ Medeiros and Luciano Calvosa. And Luciano is going to touch on the World Series. So, in case you haven't noticed throughout this show, Luciano, this is his sport, baseball. And the World Series is just his element. So, Luciano, what do you have?
All right, Adam, first off, again, thank you guys for having me. I really do appreciate it. But, guys, if any of you guys listening are living under a rock, what are you guys doing? The World Series is by the time this comes out, the World Series Game 1 probably would have happened already. So, of course, it's the Houston Astros versus the Philadelphia Phillies. And as I teased before in the first segment of the show, something's magical is going on in Philly with both the Eagles and the Phillies. The Phillies representing the National League, their final record was 87-75. And the Houston Astros representing the American League, their record was 106-56. So, obviously, a big difference right there. I mean, listen, we've seen Houston for the past few years in the World Series. I mean, me being a Yankees fan and seeing it was for Houston to defeat my Yankees, it was tough to watch. But listen, they were the better team overall. So hats off to them. But definitely it's going to be a great series. I mean, no one expected Philadelphia to make it this far to the World Series, if I'm going to be honest. I mean, they fired their head manager, Joe Girardi, early in the season because of their early season struggles. And they were fighting for a playoff spot towards the latter end of the season. And look how far they got. I mean, listen, they had to go through the Padres, win the NLCS, which was a pretty good series. But listen, I mean, they were showed that they were the better team. I mean, overall, they're both on both sides, the Houston Astros and the Phillies. Their pitching it's neck and neck. I mean, from what I saw from the American League Championship Series for the Astros, their pitching unmatched. It was unbeatable. You know, Game 1's going to be a good one because for the Astros, they have Justin Verlander going, who's arguably having his best season of his career. And for the Phillies, they have Aaron Nola, who has been their ace for a pretty decent amount of time right now. and definitely this one's gonna be a good one, guys, for sure. I mean, listen, from the lineups, from the hitting standpoint of things, I mean, listen, both lineups, they have their ups and downs, but I'm going to show you the game one lineup for the Phillies real quick. We got Kyle Schwarber, Rhys Hoskins, JT Realmuto, Bryce Harper, Nick Castellanos, Alex Bohm, Stott, and Gene Segura and Brandon Marsh. That's just the Philly side of things. And let me show you what the Houston side of things are looking like. I mean, Houston, we've seen them all year round. I mean, we know what Houston's capable of doing. Jose Altuve, Jeremy Pena, Yordan Alvarez, Alex Bregman, Cal Tucker, Yuli Gurriel, Trey Mancini, Chase McCormick, and Martin Maldonado. So up and down on both sides of the lineup. Both lineups looks absolutely scary, and there will be a lot of runs produced in this series alone. So with that, Adam and CJ, I got to ask, I mean, even though I'm not sure if you guys have some decent knowledge on baseball, but who do you guys have taking this whole thing? Who do you have winning the 2022 World Series?
So listen, right off the bat, the Astros do deserve to be favored. That team, top to bottom, has been electric for years. And I think you mentioned there's something magical going on in Philly. The script couldn't be made any better. So you have the Philadelphia Phillies, who made it winning 87 games. It's fairly rare for in the MLB postseason to make the playoffs with less than 90 wins, and they did it. And not only that, but they made the World Series while being essentially the last playoff spot. And you are going up against the 106 win Houston Astros, who have been involved in plenty of cheating scandals. They're one of the more hated teams, actually maybe more than the Yankees at this point. In recent years, more than the Yankees, which does say a lot. So this really is like just a David versus Goliath spectacle going on here in the 2022 World Series. And off the bat, I do have to favor the Astros because top to bottom, that is a very good team. Their lineup is solid. Their ace in Justin Verlander is an ageless wonder, and he is a slam dunk to make the Hall of Fame whenever he's eligible. But to have an ERA in the ones during a season at the age of 39, isn't that just unheard of? Especially for a pitcher. Pitchers don't last too long. So for him to last as long, give him a pat on the back, even though he's an Astro right now. Wow, unbelievable. But I think I definitely would have to give it to Houston. But what I love about the MLB postseason is become about making the playoffs, make the tournament. At that point, anything can happen. I did not see the Red Sox last year making a run all the way to the ALCS and taking the Astros 6 games. I did not see that coming, but it happened. They were able to make a run despite their horrible second half stretch. So for the Phillies to win this series, I don't rule it out. And they've already had a great run so far. Momentum is on their side. They can do it. They can. But I have to give it to Houston right now.
Okay. All right, CJ, you got your intake on the Phillies Astros?
Let me just say right now, I don't know anything about baseball. I really don't. I don't watch it, but correct me if I'm wrong, but the Braves won last year, right? I'm just checking.
That is correct, yes.
All right,
the Braves did win last year.
Yeah, because they beat the Astros.
Yep.
I want Philly to win, just because it would be one hell of a story. But I think Houston's going to win. Now, maybe it's just because I'm so disconnected from the MLB world. But I actually wouldn't be, even though I hate the Astros, I really do. I think they're a bunch of dirty cheaters, but I wouldn't be too angry if they won. And here's why. So they won, I believe, their first championship those years ago, but it turns out they cheated.
Yep.
I think, let's just hope they're not cheating this time, but I think The Houston Astros owe it to their fan base to deliver a clean, untainted championship. And as much as we all, like, whether you like baseball or not, like to rip on the Astros and call them cheaters, I feel bad for their fans. Imagine your franchise captures its first World Series ever, and it's gonna have it's forever gonna have an asterisk. It's a tainted championship. That's not something I wish on any fan base. That's just got to be depressing. And I think the Astros are going to win. I want the Phillies to win, like I said, because just for the story alone. But I can't help but feel bad for Houston's fans. And I can truly say, beyond a shadow of a doubt, Houston owes their fan base an actual clean, legit title.
I definitely agree with you. I definitely agree with you on that, CJ, for sure.
Yeah, that's my only take. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. No worries. But for my take, I mean, listen, I told you guys this before. I mean, watching the Yankees-Astros series was absolutely depressing for me on my side because, listen, I'm a Yankees fan, but we got swept. But obviously, I'm rooting for the Phillies to take this one home. I mean, they haven't won a World Series since 2008. And mind you, I believe that's 14 years, if my math is correct, because I'm not the best at math. But, 14 years since they've last won a championship. I mean, listen, it's going to be a dogfight. We know this is going to be a good series, but as much as I despise Houston, even though their team is from top to bottom, from the starting lineup to the starting rotation to the bullpen to the management to the front office, they're an overall great team. And they've been at the top of the American League for so many seasons in a row. It's ridiculous what Houston has been doing. But like CJ said before, I think winning a clean World Series without any cheating scandals would be monumental for this Houston franchise. I mean,
6 years in a row, actually. ALCS, 6 years in a row.
Exactly. I mean, where do you see that in sports anymore? Not only just baseball, but just in sports in general. Where do you see a franchise constantly coming back to the championship series?
There's a team that represents. There's a team that represents New England that did it quite a few times in the NFL. But
yeah, not to mention the LeBron James Cavaliers too.
Yeah, right. That's a perfect example. Yeah,
it's rare though. I'll give you that much. It's very rare, and it's a flash in the pan whenever it's in the MLB and the NFL, because those are sports where really it's designed where there's not very much, like there's not much consistency. A team can be really good in the MLB and the NFL. A team can be very good one year and then be terrible the next. It's one of those types of leagues. In the NBA, you see it all the time where teams are good and they stay good for almost a decade. So it's like for the Houston Astros, the New England Patriots, the New York Yankees for stretches, to be able to do what they've done is really incredible. Despite all the cheating with the Astros, I will say I give them a little more. I almost give them more respect. The Astros, that they've been caught up in these cheating scandals. They've had coaches fired, players leaving, and they've still been able to maintain their consistency throughout the entirety of their run. They almost, during the 2020 season, everyone forgets this, but they almost came back from down 3-0 for the second time ever, which is nearly impossible, especially in baseball. So, like, especially in the COVID year, I give them a little bit of credit. They've been able to maintain their competitiveness and stay among the top in the American League despite everything they've been through. So I got to give them props for that, despite everything going on with them.
All right. I mean, definitely I can respect that. But listen, bottom line is just it's going to be a great series, and I'm looking forward to it.
Absolutely. All right, guys. Do we have any other thoughts before we end the show tonight?
I think we're pretty good, Adam.
Nope.
We're good.
All right, Luciano, thank you so much for joining the show. Let us know if you want to come back on. We'd love to have you again, man.
Absolutely. Thank you guys so much for having me. I enjoyed being here. I will definitely be coming back more often for sure. Absolutely.
Anytime, dude. All right. Well, that'll do it for us tonight. Thank you for listening to us. We have new episodes out Tuesdays and Fridays at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We also have all our episodes available on Spotify, Spreaker, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, and so much more. Also, be sure to follow our Instagram at Fumblerooski_podcast to keep up with our podcast and the latest coverage on the NFL. Otherwise, we'll see you next week. Over and out.